Welcome to Mind Shield. We protect the mind and pursue the truth. Let's get started.
Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to break down the physics behind one of the most wild concepts in audio technology, directed sound.
Yeah, that's not just a line out of some spy movie. We're actually digging into the technology that makes it possible to create private audio messages that seem to materialize out of thin air. Some people even call it ghost audio.
And that really is the million-dollar question, right? How do you take sound, which we all know spreads out everywhere, and focus it into a tight, invisible beam? This is where we leave the world of science fiction and jump straight into some really fascinating physics.
Okay, so how on earth do you solve a mystery like that? Well, the answer isn't what you'd think. It's not about just building a bigger, more powerful speaker. Nope. We have to totally rethink how sound even gets from a source to your ears. See, the real secret, the key to making a laser beam of sound, is to use the air. The very air that sound travels through becomes an active part of your sound system. You basically make the air do all the heavy lifting for you. And this whole process starts with something we can't even hear, ultrasound. We're talking sound waves that are pitched so incredibly high, they're completely silent to our ears. Think of this as the invisible delivery truck for the audible message we want to send.
All right, so how do you take that silent ultrasound and turn it into a whisper that only one person can hear? Well, the science behind it is super clever, and it all boils down to a weird little quirk in physics.
Okay, so here's how it works. A device shoots out two separate, totally inaudible ultrasonic beams. Now here's the cool part. Air isn't a perfect medium. When you blast sound through it, it kinda distorts the waves, just a tiny bit. So when these two powerful ultrasonic beams cross paths in this imperfect air, they mix together and create a third, brand new sound wave. And the magic here is that the pitch of this new wave is the exact difference between the two original ones. So if you choose those first two frequencies just right, you can create a difference that falls right smack in the middle of our hearing range. And this whole process has a fancy name, acoustic heterodyning. It's an idea they actually borrowed from old-school radio tech and proved it could work in the air way back in 1975. It just goes to show, even the tiny imperfections in the air are enough to let sounds mix together while they're flying around. So we have the science. Let's see how that theory gets turned into a real, actual device. Think about a normal speaker. It just kind of blasts sound out in a big cone, right? So everyone in the room hears it. A parametric speaker is totally different. It doesn't even make audible sound itself. Nope, it shoots out those ultrasonic beams, and they create this sound at a very specific point out in the open air. The audio literally starts existing right where those beams cross. And that gives you this incredibly narrow, super-controlled column of sound.
And this right here really shows you the difference between targeted sound and just, loud sound. You've got things like a long-range acoustic device, or LARD, which is basically a super powerful, kind of focused megaphone. Everybody hears it. But a parametric speaker? It's all about being sneaky. Its beam is so narrow that someone standing just a couple of feet to the side would hear nothing at all. It really is the difference between a sound shotgun and a sound sniper rifle.
Okay, so this brings up a huge question. If this beam is made of silent ultrasound, and only the target can hear it, how would you ever prove it's even there? I mean, how do you find something that's designed to be invisible and inaudible?
Well, here's the thing. This whole process of creating sound out of thin air, it's not very efficient at all. In fact, it's pretty messy. And that messiness, that inefficiency, that's our key. Because it leaves behind a whole trail of evidence, acoustic fingerprints that you can absolutely measure.
So an investigator with the right gear isn't even listening for the message itself. They're hunting for these three clues. First, those super powerful, high-frequency ultrasonic waves that started the whole thing. Second, you've got harmonics and other electronic noise that the device leaks out. And third, there's this weird effect called intermodulation. Basically, your standard microphone isn't perfect either, and sometimes it can pick up these faint, audible shadows created by those powerful ultrasonic signals hitting it.
And just look at the raw power difference here. I mean, to create a sound at a normal conversational volume, the device has to be pumping out an ultrasonic signal that is ridiculously loud. We're talking jet engine loud. Now, it's silent to us, but for anyone with the right kind of microphone, that massive signal is like a giant flashing beacon.
Okay, so now for the reality check. Let's talk about the real-world limits of this tech and what it would actually take to gather forensic proof that it's being used.
One of the biggest hurdles is just the air, plain old air. High-frequency ultrasound gets eaten up and scattered by the atmosphere really, really quickly. A 40 kilohertz signal loses a whopping 20 decibels of power over just 30 meters. So that really puts a cap on the effective range for any kind of sneaky application.
So to actually find this beam, you can't just pull out your phone's voice recorder. It won't work. You need the pro stuff. Special microphones that can actually hear way up in the ultrasonic range. You need software, a spectrum analyzer, to actually see the signals as peaks on a graph. And if you really want to pinpoint the source, you'd want a whole array of those mics to triangulate its position.
And that's really the main thing to take away from all this. While the experience of hearing a voice that no one else can is, well, it's pretty jarring, it's not magic. It's just physics. And because it's physics, it leaves a messy trail of byproducts. It is completely 100% measurable and detectable if you have the right tools and know what you're looking for.
So okay, we've seen how we can manipulate sound waves to do some pretty amazing things. But what about other kinds of waves? Could you use them not just to send a message, but to actually see what's happening on the other side of a solid wall? Well, in our next explainer, we're going to dive right into the incredible science of through-wall radar.